right.
right at. Hey, everybody. We're here, Dorothy and and if you, I know it takes a minute for y'all to get in, and if you'd let me know that you're here so we know who we're talking to. Otherwise, Dorothy and I could talk to each other for hours. Oh,
So true.
there's three people. Yeah, an old friend of mine called me last night and we talked for 2.5 hours, and I was just like, this is just like when you used to live here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And so for my people, I rarely live stream on my YouTube channel. So if I did it correctly, I'm doing a live stream there too. But
we'll be able to see, I'll be able to see as they come in if they chat. It
yeah.
shows which channel they come from.
Okay. All right. How will I see that? Anyways, so hi everybody. We're going to talk just while we're waiting. We're
We
going to
got
talk
Debbie
about
Joyce is in and she's spreading love and light, and uh, Eliza Bassett is here, and I think she's from my channel, Kathy G. And I don't normally do name check-ins, but I'm looking to see if one of Dorothy's people happen to be up and alert.
I don't know. All right, I got the live chat on my phone. Good. I can at
Okay.
least see that piece. That's fantastic. But yeah, we're going to talk about what's left over, bits and pieces of what we got going on for the rest of the year, things we
Mm-hmm.
see for this year going into next, some of the really bigger things, the bigger things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and more. And
Okay.
whatever we go to. Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, just to kind of give us something to be looking at while we're
Yeah.
talking about all this stuff, and hi Angla, Angla's here from Finland. The
Oh, hi
gang's all
Angela.
here. Um, I'm
Wonderful.
going to roll uh, in the garden for the month of November, which I find in just looking things over is a fascinating month. We got some stuff moving early in
Mhm.
November. And this is always an interesting time of year because it's kind of the time when we roll and everybody goes, oh, I got to finish whatever I need to finish because nothing happens in December, except that's not true this year either. But anyway, if you don't know, this is my garden, and I'm rolling for uh, the biggest overall changes going around us universally in November. Oops.
Right.
Wow. Ooh, cool. For you that don't know what's going on in the garden, this represents our body. This represents our mind. Our mind is the yellow one. This is spirit. This is our values or grounding. And this is what's going to clarify things for us. And our clarity stone fell between the tree of life and the crown chakra. And I have to read both of those since that's where it is. But to open it up, where's our body? And we're feeling really kind of disconnected from ourselves. Um, we know physical changes are coming. We can sense that they're coming, but there's also a part of us that says, really listen to your body. Yeah, things are changing around us. And listen, if something hits you in the gut, listen to it, because that's really, really an important thought. Or if somebody says something to you and your stomach kind of roils and you go, that's not right. Listen to those instincts. Where is our mind? Our mind is in air, which is a great place for the mind to be because air or thoughts or swords do mean that. And how we think things about things, how we form thoughts, how we form and create things in our reality. So, you hear about something really horrible that's happened to other people and we can't control it. Do you let that pull you down and drag you back into every time in your life things fell to crap? Or do you think better times can come to them, better things can happen around them? And that happens in our own personal life. You know, something hits you like a body blow in your mind, and your mind goes racing back to all horrible times, and instead you should be grasping and moving forward and remembering the times things worked out. Spirit, our spirit is also in air, and your your thinking is all important at this at no wait, your spirit transforms your thinking. If you can tie into your heart and your heart centeredness, it can really help keep your thoughts from running away from you and getting into awfulizing everything and make things seem so much better. And your your spirit is also in the present, and if we could combinedly get together, we can really, our spirit, the energy of our spirit universally can really change things. And I know a lot of people go, oh, poo poo, that doesn't happen. But really it does. And we're going to talk about how to gear yourself up for the changes coming in 2024 and how to be forewarned and forearmed. Our values are also in present, but that's all they're in is they're just in present. And when our values sit here, what's really happening to us, this is, it's kind of, I don't know if any of you ever watched the show Forged in Fire, where they show how they make steel out of the metal that they start to work with. And it has to go through a certain amount of, in essence, molecular trauma of the fire. A lot of us are going through that right now. It's really hard to live in the world we live in right now. It's really hard to look at some of the stuff we have to look at, but it's helping us purify our values. And are we going to fall back into anger and fall into hate, or are we going to move forward and do what these two stones are telling us, which is to think of things through in spirit and clear our mind and use the better part of our own mind. Now, this all culminates with clarity, and this is the tree of life, and this is the crown chakra. And when it's in the crown chakra, it says all is becoming clear to us right now in this month, in the month of November. And the tree of life says your path is blessed with clarity and wisdom. So those are incredibly positive stones at a time when, and one way to avoid it is avoid news. When you turn on the TV and see what's happening in the world, thinking, oh my God, are we going to survive this? But we are. And Dorothy's going to start walking us through some of the
After I'm done sneezing.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it is also, we've had a huge temperature shift here, and everybody's walking around with ear infections and snuffling and sniffling. So,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. We were, it was nice and warm here in New England, and now the temperature dropped like 30 degrees. So it's cold again. Back to being cold.
it was
But
82 a week ago here, and it
yeah.
was 32 this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. We got the same thing. How can that happen? You're in
I don't
Texas.
know. We're not supposed to do that. You can do that. But at least you have pretty leaves that change in your trees and stuff. You get something out of fall. All we get is more wet, nasty weather.
Oh, goodness sakes. All right. Well, that was good, Nancy Jean. Thank you. I appreciate that because that's, nice and specific. And for the people on my channel that don't know, Nancy Jean, what was that fabric and that cloth that you were
It's
using?
called the Oracle Garden, and
Okay, and you created it.
I channeled it in. I didn't create it. It came from that other place.
All right. Well, on this realm, you created it. How's
Yeah,
that?
yeah. It's in this level. I yes. And if you're interested in it, you can go to Nancy Jean. You can go to my website, and you can read a little bit about it. That's where there's a shop there where you can order it, or it also has my email, and you can contact me to ask more information about it.
Just
So.
ask about questions. Ask questions. Yeah, exactly. So for us astrologically, first off, just for those who don't know, of course, I have my own YouTube channel. Nancy Jean will put that down later, and I do YouTube Shorts, so you can see stuff for every single day if you click on the
Mm-hmm.
Shorts tab. And then I do longer things over in a membership platform on Patreon. But generally speaking, we're still in the eclipse energy because I know it's all done, and it came and went on the lunar eclipse on October 28th. And of course, that solar eclipse you guys were able to witness over there in
Mm-hmm.
Texas and in other areas in the country. That solar eclipse in Libra, and
Mm-hmm.
then the lunar eclipse in Taurus. And so it's interesting because the energies of this is partnerships and relationships, which is what was begun at the solar eclipse you got to see.
Right.
Where's the balance? And I know you're asking about what's coming, but this energy is in play for a long time.
I know.
New moons begin depending on what cycle you're looking at, what lunar cycle, because there are many lunar cycles. That the new moon eclipse can have a 3-year cycle. That's something I work with
Mm-hmm.
in depth over with my memberships because it's something that's pretty complicated. It's not complicated, but a little bit lunar
Mm-hmm.
gestation cycles. So you really have to be into astrology to get that piece. But the point is like there's a 3-year cycle that begins with every new moon. When they're in eclipse, it's powerhouse. So all of us with that new moon on October 14th, the solar eclipse, it definitely is going to be about where's the balance in our lives. Are we in harmonious relationships? Uh-huh. What it shows us too is how it can really divide. We're divided. This country is very divided. And
Mm-hmm.
we've always had some division, but it's really deep now. And then the lunar eclipse that we just had in Taurus is, what is it that we value? It really
Mm-hmm.
reflects to us our own personal values. And while that lunar eclipse, you can't see that everywhere, it had to be nighttime for you to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Yes.
that is the piece of, well, what's being reflected back to me. So that lunar eclipse was something that was quite important. And that's the lunar eclipses, which are full moons, are
Mm-hmm.
half through the 3-year cycle I talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And but eclipses are so powerful. And
What if
it
the eclipse is conjunct your natal sun?
well then you will I had one 2 years ago, June 10, 2021. My birthday's June 10th. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a birthday near a solar or lunar eclipse, first off, that's going to happen every 19 years. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to happen every 19 years because eclipses stay in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time for them to move out of those areas beyond a lifespan. And so it usually means that there is something significant, there is a significant change. Now, it can happen on that day. And the last
Mm-hmm.
time I had it, it did. It happened on that day for me.
Mm-hmm.
Something major, significant happened, and it has changed the trajectory of my life. It's been
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years now. We're almost through it, the 3-year cycle that it takes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it makes a big difference in our lives when you're born near an eclipse, or if they're, which you might not know, but if you recognize there's an eclipse near your birthday, and I'm like 3 or 4 days, we're not
No,
going to go out too far.
it was 1 degree away from my natal sun.
Was it really? Oh my God, Nancy,
That's the
Nancy,
night
you're
that I
so
stayed up till 2 o'clock. And oh my
okay.
God.
All right. Oh yeah. So it was in the early Taurus energy.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, since this one was as a lunar eclipse, meaning a full moon, it had a lot to do with you realizing what is important to you. What do you recognize? I'm going to tell you right off the bat, eclipses as well, physically.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, if you have an eclipse, physically, you're going to be exhausted and drained as well. It will suck the life out of you sometimes, right? And so it will do that. And we'll have a conversation about that some other
We'll
time because
talk
that's
about that. We'll
personal.
talk about that. People don't want to hear about my aches and
That's
pains.
personal. So we'll talk about that some other time. But just so people know that there are, it could energize you,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also be very, very draining. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what we feel when we have eclipses near our birthdays, within just a few days of our birthdays. And all right, so you guys in Texas, I mean, I know not everybody's listening. I'm just saying you because you are in Texas. So y'all,
And
I'll
there's a
just add
lot
that
of
in.
us. There's a lot
Yeah,
of us down here.
yeah, yeah. Y'all have some amazing stuff going on. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna see if I can do this.
We tried it earlier at
We
work.
tried it earlier. I want to do that. I want to do this. Share the screen. I have to tell it what I want it to share. There we are. Allow.
Okay,
It
here it is.
yay!
Ta-da!
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
isn't
yay.
this fun, Dorothy? When it all works, it's so
It
cool.
all works. It works on Zoom. I know how to do it on Zoom, but this is different. All right, so here's some things I'm going to talk about. These two lines. You guys have seen this. I've showed this. All kinds of people have showed this. The eclipse line over here on the very left, that came in Oregon and exited at the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it impacted other parts of the world, but we're just looking at us today. I'm going to be selfish. There's that one. That one's from October 14th, solar eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
The next solar eclipse that we have will be April 8th, and
Mm-hmm.
it comes through Mexico, crosses right there in Texas, and comes up to us here in New England. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you're also going to, and that's April 8th. I'm
And
going to
I
get to
live
my
right
point.
there. I
You
live right
do.
there.
It's right. San Antonio is right there. I'll show you one more chart in a second. And this blue line, I'm a little messy with it because I had to draw it with my finger. We have Pluto, this is another thing that's going on for the rest of the year into
Oh.
January 20th. Pluto is at the very final degree and minute of Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
And it will, on January 20th, 2024, the sun will make the conjunction to Pluto in
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn. 29 degrees 59 minutes. That's the absolute last moment in that it is in there
Mm-hmm.
until it shifts to Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
29 degrees is a critical degree. It's in that degree for a whole month. And it's a critical degree, meaning that we just have a lot of intensity going on. And there's nothing left that we can do when Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And Capricorn being the things that we feel are stable and solid. And we've been seeing the breaking down of the things we think are stable and solid for such a long time. And Pluto is meant to break these things down so we can build things back up again from a place that is different. It's just like taking a house down to the studs. If anybody knows what, if most of us,
Yeah.
hopefully we know what that means. Taking a house down to the studs, getting, replacing anything that was, rotted, whatever, and then building from there. This is
Mm-hmm.
what the remainder of the year is like, even into January. And this blue line on January 20th, this is where Pluto and the sun are exactly conjunct, 2959 Capricorn, and they're on the ascendant. That's the ascendant area that they're at. And what that is, astrocartography, it's called. And that line goes through just a little bit west of, where the eclipses crisscross. But needless to say, y'all in Texas are really getting hit because that's where it crisscrosses. But everything that you can see here in this whole area, the Texas and Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New
New
Mexico.
Mexico.
Oh, I used to
Mm-hmm.
live right there. And all of this is really being, there'll be a big impact. What exactly it's going to do, I'll stop my share now, is unknown. But what it tells me is there is major shifts going on. And
Mm-hmm.
for those of you who live in that area, you will feel it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was talking about we had when they had the solar eclipse October 14th, but I know that path from the West Coast all the way through the Gulf of Mexico, y'all had some serious weather this year. I mean,
Yeah.
the heat, excuse me, the heat was enormous for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I see eclipses moving through where they're visible, where eclipses are visible, there's usually incredible amount of physical changes in those areas.
Right.
So whether it's your weather,
Mm-hmm.
government, I don't know. Are you guys leaving the country?
No, that's a BS thing. And they used to say Texas was going to be allowed, it could divide itself into 5 different parts.
Yeah.
And that's a BS thing too.
Okay.
I never took Texas history, but my kids did. And
Yeah. So I mean, so while I'm honing in on Texas, because that's where y'all are,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the heart of the country,
Mm-hmm.
it's the middle of the country. And so to me, it just, I can recognize, and even if we were to take that measurement straight across the earth where they crisscross, all the way around the planet, that whole area, that whole latitude and longitude, honestly, in both directions, creates a lot of tension and stress. So it really feels like the country is, well, we know where we're at, and
Yeah.
um,
It,
it's on a trajectory now that there's no stopping it in a
so
sense.
you could take where that X met and moved it east and west on, okay, it goes right across Florida. That's another problem spot.
Yeah, yeah,
From my
I know.
perspective. Yeah.
Rosie asked, I see Rosie says, isn't January 2024 is inauguration day? No, it's not. January 25. I mean, January 20th, 2025 is,
5. Yeah, it's
because
2024. It's not.
the general election is November 2024.
Yeah. But
I
it
know, I
might
saw that too. I was like, oh, what is that? I
looked it
went
up.
that way too, Rosie, when I first noticed it. And I was like, oh, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute. I went and looked it up. I was like, wait, that's right. The election is November. Yeah. And that's quite an interesting day. Uh, and speaking
And
of That's in
we
2024.
we
Election day
got a
20.
couple questions, and
All right.
actually, we only ended up really having one because Dorothy doesn't do personal readings when we're on live or
That's
even
right.
when she's just taping it. And the other thing is, Dorothy reminded me of something someone put in the question. We wouldn't put it up, but don't give people your birth date and your birth time. I mean,
Not
understand,
publicly, not
not
publicly. You're
public.
welcome to send it to me privately,
Mm-hmm,
but yeah, private sessions, you can go book that on my website. But
mm-hmm,
on an environment like this, even when I do have a couple of podcasts that I'm a regular on,
mm-hmm.
once every couple of months, and we will do readings, but the person's private information is only seen by me and the host.
Right,
You
right.
never want to put your birth date, time, place out there. That is private information that can really risk your security. So
Yeah,
please don't do that. It's not just here, it's like everywhere. Don't do that.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
just a little tip from people who do this stuff.
Yeah.
This was from Marsham 1611.
Okay.
Second Saturn return. Everybody gets so frightened about Saturn returns. Honest to God, really. I mean, they do tend to throw our life into a little bit of havoc, but it's because if those things didn't happen to us, then our life would be incredibly boring. So, what can you tell us about second Saturn returns and How often does Saturn return? So, about what age group are we talking about?
It's every 29 years. So right around 29, then about right around 59, 58. It
Mm-hmm,
varies. It varies. It depends on where it is and how it is when you're born.
mm-hmm,
Sorry, I got this little bit of a tickle going on here today. And yeah, so that's approximate. The second Saturn return, if you've just been a hard worker, and so that's going to be around 58. It will be just before you're 60.
mm-hmm,
So the energy of that second Saturn return, generally speaking, is about figuring out how to work smarter, not harder, right?
mm-hmm,
If we, like you and me, where you and I are in similar ages, within the same decade. And so we have, we look at when our parents or our grandparents retired. They retired in
mm-hmm.
their 50s way back when. Their 55 was retirement age. I remember when my grandmother retired. And but now we're like almost 70 before we
Mm-hmm.
can retire. The point is like think about that as the second Saturn return. It doesn't mean you have to retire at the age of 58 or 59, but you want to stop working so hard, right? You want to stop working that hard. You don't want to be just doing what you did when you were 20s and 30s because we get tired.
Well, physically, people can't do some of it.
Just can't do it. And
Mm-hmm,
there are just certain things that, whatever your career, profession, whatever, you
mm-hmm,
just don't want to do these things anymore. I have a family member that is still in service, working in a restaurant,
mm-hmm,
and she's in her 60s and she's like, oh my God, people. And I'm like, you got to find something else to do now.
mm-hmm,
But so I don't, I'm, a lot of people think that because they don't know their own charts, and we're isolating something here when we're saying let's just look at the Saturn
mm-hmm,
return. And I even have somebody that I know well, and he was just adamant that his Saturn return was causing a ton of trouble. Well, I looked at his chart and it's like, no, actually, if you're born in the end of 61,
mm-hmm,
I actually have this article on my website blog,
mm-hmm.
DorothyMorganastrologer.com. Go to the blog. It's just the second one from what I've just posted. Um, Pluto has been conjunct your Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
That is tough because everything
Mm-hmm.
you believe in and all of your structures and foundations are now going through a big evolution, and
Mm-hmm.
things are changing and evolving. That is tough. But
Yeah.
Saturn return does not have to be difficult. The first one comes around when we're just finally an adult at 28.
Mm-hmm.
You finished all your college education if you went that route.
Mm-hmm.
You've established yourself. Usually it's time to get married or have a family or make these big commitments. That's
Mm-hmm.
socially what we tend to do at that age. But again, at the second one is when we're just satisfied. We've already lived 2/3 of our life. We got another third to go ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I want that to be? I'm done working hard because I'm not having kids anymore. I'm
Mm-hmm.
done supporting people in all these different ways. What is it that I need and I want for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I want my life to be easier. So it doesn't have to be that hard. It can be, depending on other transits happening at the same time, but I'm just isolating one thing right now. We would have to look at your picture, your astrology to see if there
Mm-hmm.
are other things like the example I just mentioned where Pluto was conjunct this
Right.
person's Saturn. Saturn return was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that wasn't so hard. That's actually when we get ready for things. But the Pluto on the Saturn, so that was like, so that's the end of 61, 1962. And then again, 30 years later, I believe it's, I got it in my head, somewhere in 1991 was another period when Saturn and
That's when my
birth chart.
youngest was born.
Oh yeah, so you have
And
kids, you have people.
and I've watched it happening in the house with me. It's lots of fun.
Oh, it's hard. It is
It's a hard
difficult.
one.
It's very hard. It's very hard. But we can see, but you astrologically, I can see the tools that you have to work through this, the tools you should
Mm-hmm.
use. Um, sometimes we all get overwhelmed, of course, but you can work through it.
Mm-hmm.
But Pluto moves a lot slower in the sky than, excuse me, than Saturn does. So if
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about two separate aspects,
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough stuff.
Yes. And this is why I can't tell you guys enough about how important it is if you want to follow trends in astrology to get one good birth chart drawn that you know is done by someone reputable and that they
Mhm.
know what they're talking about, so you know where things are placed. Because um I had a young man who said, well, how does this stuff work? He's my coach. I am doing exercise classes twice a week. And he was talking to him. So I came home and there's a site I like, and I ran his birth. He knew his birth time. I mean, he had it in his wallet. So he's looking for it.
It's common now. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. And I did his thing, and it's one that it does a pretty good job of just saying in general, this is what it looks like. And it was like 4 pages long when it was all tippy typed up. And he looked at it and he goes, oh my God, it's like it read me, you know?
Mhm.
And I said, that's how it works. But I said, that's just sort of a plain Jane one. It's better if you talk to a real astrologer who can relate it to other things in your life and in your life patterns. Because I studied astrology for a year. I studied astrology long enough to know I knew enough about it that I didn't want to know anymore. To do it
That's
for
how I am with
I
the
can do my
tarot.
own. I can do my own, and I can look at things and sort of see where they are. But it's like I asked Dorothy, what happens when the eclipse is on your natal sun? I couldn't. That was beyond me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I was curious for you. I have a question for you.
sure.
Because of the Pluto and you and your tarot knowledge, because of Pluto at the final degree of Capricorn for such a long time, so a lot of
Hmm.
December, most of January, it's final. Whatever's
Hmm.
going on in that degree is just final. There's nothing we can do. It's just like, like the house that has been torn down, it's down.
Hmm.
You have to, and then you have to evaluate, and then you can rebuild. Is there a card in the tarot that, because I don't know tarot very well at all.
Tower.
Is there?
The tower would remind me of that. Towers when all the energy that's built up, it breaks apart. And um, when you look at the tower, the card itself, if I can dig one out,
Yeah.
um, it people are like so terrified of the tower, but I'm like, if you don't have tower moments in your life,
Hmm.
then you will never move forward. You'll be stuck in this ivory tower doing
Right.
jack crap. And the next card right after the tower is the star. It's like you go through all these life changes, you get to the tower, it knocks you on your butt, and then you can and then you look up and you see the star, and the star is starting new goals and setting new challenges. And that's what happens when you hit that tower moment. And that's what's going to happen to people right now we're living with a whole lot of energy of
Yeah.
things we thought I'll take care of it later. Well, later is like now. And so you're just going to have to live with it. I just finished teaching. Well, I've got one more class of it. Teaching a 6-week. This is the Tower.
Yeah, I know what that one looks like.
Yeah, this is a card that's immediately before the Tower.
Oh, the devil making choices, right?
And then we get the Tower.
Yep.
And the thing is, it does knock you off. I mean, sometimes you would never have moved on, and you've all seen friends who've had crap happen in their life, and you're
Yeah.
like, but that was the best thing that ever happened to you, and they will agree. And then
Uh-huh.
after the Tower you have the Star. So you go
Oh,
through whatever's been obsessing you, whatever's made you
okay.
OCD,
Love
then
that.
your Tower falls down, the devil goes away, the Tower gets torn apart, and then you have the Star. And then
That's
immediately,
perfect.
isn't that gorgeous? And she's seeking balance. And there's the Pleiades. That's the
Yep.
7 stars up there. And it's a time to move forward. And then the next card in the deck is the Sun. And the Sun is the most beneficent card in the deck, as far as I'm concerned.
And the
Most,
sun is a star, and the sun is a
yeah,
star
and the
in the
Sun,
solar
and then you've
system.
got the
Yeah.
Sun. So
Okay.
you get the
Perfect.
illumination you need. So yeah, that's, and I know astrology terms. I know a few. And I know, isn't it when things are in the last degree, it's called the anorexic?
That's not exactly the name. I can't pronounce it. I've always had a hard time
Okay.
pronouncing the
Well,
name,
it's
but it's
something
not
that makes you
anorexic.
think this isn't good.
It is. You're right. There is a word. I'm sorry. I am
There
so
is
bad with
it is
pronouncing.
tough.
It is it's a critical degree. It is a critical degree. And the end of the 29th degree of any sign is critical, but critical maybe not in the sense that, like in the hospital on life support, but critical that it's the culmination, it's the
Hmm.
the apex and the culmination of all of that energy. And
Hmm.
Pluto has been, and we're focusing on Pluto. He's been in Capricorn since 2008. So it's
Yes,
been a very long
it moved
time.
in when Obama came in office.
Right.
I was working on that
And
campaign then.
or wherever Pluto is moving somewhere in everybody's chart.
Hmm.
So wherever it is moving is where you would have experienced a lot of change and evolution. All you have to do is look back at
Hmm.
how things in your own life have gone through a deep change since 2008. I had a big shift in 2008. My first family member passed away that I'd ever experienced in my whole life. So, and
Hmm.
that was, that was right on my moon. I have a
Here's
moon.
someone we can talk about. I haven't had an astrologic reading since the 90s. I
Hmm.
think I may be overdue for one. Yes,
I think so
Karen, you
too,
may.
Karen. People come to me every 6 months, once a
Hmm.
year or every 6 months. If you haven't had one in a long time, you know, and whoever did it, it doesn't matter. Everybody sees natal charts in a different way, so you can give a whole new, yeah, whole new. What am I trying to say here? You may have already had a natal chart done, but everybody reads natal charts a little bit different,
Right.
and so you might get reminded of something you already know about yourself, and you may discover something different. Like I always look at if a person's born near eclipses, I look at what your lunar phase is when you're born. Not everybody does those things.
Hmm.
Gives us more insight into who you are and why you are the way you are,
Yeah.
and then
And I
the
can
transits
also,
that go with it.
and I can tell you, I studied, um, oh, the day I went in to start my tarot class, I mean, my astrology class, it was the day that Iran and Iraq went to war in the early 80s.
Oh,
It was
Lord.
that day. And, and I said, should we stay here? And she said, no, it means big changes for you. But trust
Mhm,
me, the person I was studying astrology at that era in my life,
mhm.
I was still doing like, is he the one questions for myself? I mean, I'm a very different person now.
I know.
What
I
the
hate
chart,
to do that.
yeah, and also they've fought. One of the things that confuses me terribly is all the little planets like
Yep.
Chiron and,
Chiron's an asteroid. Yep.
yeah,
Well,
and
they
Sirius.
call it a dwarf planet now.
They call them dwarf planets, and I look at that chart and it's got so much stuff around it, and I'm like,
I
I'm
know.
glad I know Dorothy. But
Yeah.
it's but it's what it's done is it's added a depth of understanding of what's happening around
Yeah.
us, and it's brought a
Yeah.
lot more feminine energy into the myths that surround that tell us why the planets are where they are and what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's really good. It's good like that. What else do we have here?
it isn't also November and December are kind of shoulder planets. In numerology, they call them the shoulder planets. It's when you're shifting from a numerology of one year to the next. But I also think when I look at readings I do this time of year, I do the 12-month readings and I do them only in November and December.
Mm-hmm.
And not to miss a chance of this, right? You
Yeah.
can go to that website and sign up for one. And what I do when I do 12 months is I lay out big cards for 12 months and then I have little modifiers for the rest of the year. And it's not going to tell you what's going to happen on February 13th, I mean, but it's
I
going
might
to,
tell you
yeah,
that.
Dorothy can tell, what all I can tell you is these are the big trends to watch out
Yeah.
for. And these are the things to be aware that you need to be prepared for, or to just sit and have a good time that month. This is the month to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And
Yeah.
I've done them for several years, but I've only done them on my thing. And I found out it's just better. I could supposedly do 12 months from anyone's starting point, but I really think it's better to think of January 1st as the beginning and following it through to December. And I have one woman, and she better call me back. I did hers a year ago, and her December card was the Fool, which is when everything's wide open, you can go anywhere. And her
Wow.
modifier was the Fool. So I want to know what's going on around
Is
her.
she still here?
Yeah, she's still in Dallas. Yeah. I mean, I want to find out.
I
But
meant on the planet.
no, yeah, she's on the planet. She probably
Yeah.
needs that kind of kick in the butt. But
Yeah.
anyway, so and that correlates with something I was looking at. Like, what do I tell people when they say, kind of how should I deal with my energy? For a lot of people, the end of the year, November's going to be there's a lot of weird energy coming through to us this November. But then December is a time for us to you slow down, you have different values. I just think December is just a different month, and then you're going into the new year. So some of the things I always suggest to people is they go, well, what should I do? It's at the changing of the year, and I go, well, get a chart done by Dorothy or have someone like me do your 12 months. And
Mm-hmm.
then I always give people a little lecture on journaling, and they don't have to journal like pages and pages. It doesn't have to be like Ben Franklin's biography. Um, you just need to, sit down and take 5 minutes every day and say, okay, soul, what do I need to know today? And that gives
Mm-hmm.
you an anchor to go back to. And when you start reading those pages day after day, you start to realize, oh my God, there really is, I am getting information and messages. And
Yeah.
so journaling, and I don't mean long journals, I mean journaling. And then if you have had a, a practice of meditation or mindfulness, even if it's just being mindful when you eat, make sure when you eat, all you do is eat. You don't watch the TV. You're not driving in your car or anything else, but there's all simple ways you can create mindfulness and to become more aware of yourself. And I think that anchors us into the day. But for the
Yeah.
whole year, I would wish everyone would reflect on the year, set intentions, think about what did I want to do a year ago that maybe doesn't work, or I never got to it, and how can I do that? And then embrace, and this is really important for the next year, and Dorothy will go into that a little bit more, but embrace flexibility. We're going to need to be really flexible this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap falling down the line. And then uh, focus on your own personal growth.
Yeah.
What's important for me to grow into. If I never learn to waltz, then I'll never learn how to waltz, but I'll have other goals and things I really want to do. Anyway, Dorothy, when you're looking at someone and they're looking at their next year, how do you help
Mm-hmm.
them figure things
It
through?
depends. It really depends. The person I'm sitting with. I mean, you do tell me what your main focus is. I mean, again, if we
Mhm.
haven't done a natal chart in a while, we're gonna, or ever, we're gonna go. You and I are gonna go over that really quick.
Right.
So, or however much time. But when it comes, it depends on what you're looking at. Of course, there's always the major things, is like relationships and home situations and finances and so love, money, sex, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are always those are always big important things. So you're going to direct me there, but you're going to know what's going on. You're going to feel that there is something major happening. And a lot of us are already feeling that. So I'll just tell every single one of us listening, we all know that there is something changing. And most of us we don't know what's changing. I
Mm-hmm.
feel it too, because I know what's going on in my chart, and I still I can't identify what the outcome is. I know I'm
Right.
in a process. That's the Pluto at the very end of the zodiac sign. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
we have to focus on. So I would focus on that. What's changed? What has changed? We
Mm-hmm.
touch on what was so we can see what's coming and what is. That is just how it
Mm-hmm.
works. Astrology is cycles and patterns that repeat, but then there's additional information that comes through. So a year forecast, I don't go month to month to month. That's just doesn't flow for me. If
Well,
somebody really needs that from me, of course I'll do that. But
mm-hmm.
I'm going to look at things that, because nothing, it doesn't fit in a calendar what I do. It fits in the astrological calendar, which isn't our paper calendars.
Mm-hmm.
So I will, depending on your subject matter for, the hour and a half we're together, we'll hone in on that, and and I will say these, just like you, there are good times for certain things to be happening, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
sitting back and watching and witnessing,
Mm-hmm.
taking steps forward, like the retrogrades. We start
Mm-hmm.
January 1st is Mercury stationary. So January 1st, Mercury stationary, because it's just finished a retrograde. We end the year 2023 with Mercury retrograde. It's not the end of the world. It's just slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
So the month to month through a year forecast isn't necessarily what I do, but I can, if you need me to really do that, if that helps you feel more organized. But I basically will look at, when planets are moving through signs. Mercury
Mm-hmm.
takes 3 months, Venus 3 weeks. Venus takes 3 weeks to go through signs, things like that. So it is not calendar based.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that, and it will be based off of what you need. So I don't have a
Yeah.
formula like you do,
You
but
don't.
I do want you to do something. When you were
What?
talking about journaling,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to add in there, in you don't have to be overly involved in astrology, in knowledge of astrology, to follow it. What I want everybody to do is at new moons. Now, you do look
Mm-hmm.
at the calendar and do look at what time the new moon is. And if you don't know, follow me on YouTube and I will tell you um, when the new moon is. But that's when I want you to sit down, and I just want you don't have to do anything. Manifesting rituals. Some people love doing new moon manifesting rituals. You don't have to do that. Sit down and just write down how you feel. What's
Mm-hmm.
going on for the first couple of days after, from a new moon forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
2.5, 3 days. How are you feeling? Just journal just a little bit, and just do it once a month. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you follow me, I'm going to say, hey, look back to this new moon. What were you manifesting? What were you focusing on? What were the feelings happening then? And
Mm-hmm.
then now, whatever the situation is, this is what's happening now based off of that new moon. So journal at the new moon,
Yeah.
journal at the full moon. What are you releasing? What do you want to bring in at the new moon? What do you want to release at the full moon? Just simple journaling. And again, if you're not great at journaling, simply write down how you're feeling and
Mm-hmm.
what has been shown to you. Just, you're feeling that your friends, the people around you, all of those things. So that's what you need to do there. That would be really helpful in my eyesight, and how to use astrology in the most minimalistic way, but in a very productive and useful way.
And the good thing about working with the moon is the moon's always moving
Oh,
and the
is it?
cycles are short. It's a little difficult. Like it's at my age now, I can look back and I've had 74 years of this, and I can kind of go back and look across all those years. But that meant that these plants have really had some time to chug around in my life. But if you don't have that much time,
Yeah.
then um,
Yeah.
you you can do it with the moon, and that starts to give you some faith in the system. And also,
Yeah.
um, I believe that I believe that tarot reading is forewarned is forearmed, and it
Yeah.
gives you inklings. It gives you inklings of the energy that are coming towards you. And of course, tarot readings are generally very specific to the person that you're reading. And that's why the 12-month thing works for me, I think.
Yeah, and the astrology is that way if we compare it to your chart. But you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get what I do that is just like, the general content for people. You can get it in on Patreon, you can get it here on YouTube for free. It's just what the overall energy, what the energy is for everybody to use, but we all have our own filter. That's our own astrology chart. We all
Mm-hmm.
hear what one person says in many different ways. I mean, who didn't grow up in a family? I grew up in a family with 5 siblings. We all saw our family in very different ways. Now that I talk to them as adults, I'm like, how could you have seen it like that? It's because they seeing it through their own filter. So
Mm-hmm.
the astrology that we can talk about, just like when you do a general reading for the day,
Or like the
you're
garden thing I just did. This is
exactly
the
perfect.
potential energy that's here for us in the garden.
That's right. In the astrology, we can physically see where the planets are in the sky compared to each other. And that is the forecast that I give again, when I do my daily stuff, when I do the weekly, the monthly, the full new moon, those things. And those are energies, no matter what your chart, that is energy that you have the potential to use, to pay attention to, or just to sit back and watch. So
Here's
not
somebody
everything's
who's
for
made an
everybody.
observation. What does it mean when at a full moon and in a moon you can't sleep or you get very tired? And you already sort of covered that.
I did sort of cover it, but that's a great question, Mary. The full moon is typically when people feel more amped up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no, it's not even metaphorically, it's actually physically, it's not dark.
Mm-hmm.
Weather, of course, that exception aside, when we're at the full moon, the sun is up or the moon is reflecting as much light as possible. So it's never dark. So we're always we're energized, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
full moon in essence. The new moon is the dark of the moon. So 2 or 3 days before, 2 or 3 days after the moon is dark, new moon.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we would be more like a turtle and pull in, a
Right.
hermit and just stay within. And that's when I don't initiate new processes at the new moon. I will
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm going to take this seed and I'm going to plant it, but I'm not telling anyone about it. I want
Mm-hmm.
the idea, I want the thing, whatever it is, to grow without being disturbed by other people's thoughts and energy.
Right.
So the new moon, we tend to want to sleep more.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's that way. But then again, depending on the condition of your moon at the time
Mm-hmm.
that you were born, it could very well be different than that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
This is why, like I keep emphasizing, getting a chart from Dorothy. I want you to see this one, Dorothy. This lady showed up and she showed up as a crossover from your channel.
Oh, hi, Melissa. Excellent.
Doctor, Dorothy has not done a
You've never done a live?
dual broadcast on StreamYard, and I was
No.
trying to explain to her that if her people showed up, I could tell who they were. So,
All right. All right. So Mary also had a question. What does it
mm-hmm.
mean when a planet is at 0 degrees? So that's when the
Mm-hmm.
planet has just shifted into a new zodiac sign. And it's just like the pure essence of that zodiac sign, whatever that zodiac sign is.
Mm-hmm.
So 0 degrees in astrology, we start with 0, just like you do in the tarot. The fool is a 0.
Right.
Zodiac signs all start with 0,
Mm-hmm.
even though we have 30 degrees, and it goes 0 to 29. And 0 is that fresh, brand new, infinite possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just like it's just like a little baby being born, you know, and we're just gonna, the wonder of it all. I love when I have my moon is a 0 Capricorn, so it's just like you're always just trying to figure out new things about that zodiac sign. So whatever you have at 0 degrees right now in the sky, we have Saturn at 0 Pisces. So there's been a lot of things going on in the world around illusion and the reality and this tug of war between the two systems. It's so we're still dealing with that for another few weeks until it gets moving forward and out of 0 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to someone about the 0 degrees in astrology, and she goes, "Why didn't they just make it one?" I said,
Well, I
"Well,
don't know why, but we always, it just, these are mathematicians from thousands of years ago, because
mm-hmm.
astrology's been around that long too. I
Yeah,
think tarot might be older than astrology, but I don't know. Nobody can really say.
I
Um,
know. I don't think it is, but the
three,
mathematicians that have found a zero, they helped because that's one of the problem with dealing with Roman numerals is there is no
that's
zero.
right. It was the Romans that somebody
Th-
right
It was
then or after them.
it was the Persians. It was in the Persian universities that they developed the
Okay.
zero. This
Okay.
is the Fool. If you don't know what the image is,
Yeah.
this is the front of the deck, and you know,
Jumping off the cliff.
I have a I have a friend who says, "I just love that outfit." But anyway, he's ready to walk off a cliff. I mean, he's like, "Whatever's here is here, and I'm here, and I'm ready for it." And you
Yeah.
can't see it in that image, but he's got a little white dog nipping at his heels, which they say is his spirit.
Yeah, and I think it's going into like the 0 degree of in astrology. It's like stepping into something with open arms
Mm-hmm.
and not with any um criticism, I guess for lack of a better word, any criticism of what it will be because we don't know. We just like, oh, I'm going to
I
do
think we have
this.
zero preconceptions, right?
Perfect.
Nothing else going on there.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
Does anybody?
Somebody asked too, there's another
Mhm.
question about approximate birth time. Dina, approximate birth time. Can we still work with that? Yeah, we can. Yeah. You just email me and, we'll figure it out. What's approximate. And after a while, I get a feeling because I've been doing this for over 30 years. I get some insight too. And it's just like I was working with a client this morning and I'm like, it's an estimated birth time. And it's like, if we went back 10 minutes, this would be this and that would be that. And that would fit perfectly. But not
Mhm.
everything fits perfectly in astrology. But so we can work with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a doable thing.
Yeah.
I don't. I happen to know exactly when I was born because my mother was staring at the clock at St. Joseph's Hospital, and she said I was the
Yeah.
only one of her children that came at a civil time. All the rest of them, all the rest of them were born really early in the morning, and
Yeah.
she likes to be up early in the morning, but
Yeah.
and
Yep. Somebody here also was asking about Francine. Where can I find information interpreting the yod aspects? Yeah, I've got this book. I like the yod. The yod is amazing because the yod is there's a lot of difficulties in the yod aspect. And it is the yod is a pattern. It's two aspects that make a pattern. Here's a book. It's called
oh
the
really?
Yod book. Yep. It's pretty thick.
And it's God's also called the finger of God, which makes
It's
a whole
called
lot
the
of
Finger
sense.
of God. It's this isosceles triangle,
Hmm.
right? This is a fab book. I've had this for a lot of
I
years.
have two of those charms in my birth chart.
Yes, I do too.
And did you see this one? What does when you have a planet that's marked R on your natal chart?
Okay.
Is
What does it
that
mean
planet?
when it's retrograde? It happens astrologically. It doesn't mean the planet will be more potent later in life. Saturn retrograde in the birth chart depends, Mary, on how far into the retrograde an outer planet like Saturn is. If it will through progression, secondary progressions, it's called. If it will move direct in a lifetime, it depends on where it
Hmm.
is in its retrograde. Trek when you're born because it takes 4.5 months to retrograde every year.
Hmm.
And so where it is in that time frame of your birth
Hmm.
will let us know if it goes direct in your lifetime through secondary progressions.
Hmm.
And I mean, I have my Saturn retrograde. It's not uncommon because it's retrograde 4.5 months every single year.
So it means
Like
like what a third of the population is going to have what you got.
correct. Pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah. Yeah. It happens a lot. Same with all of the outer planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. They are all retrograde for between 4 and 5 months every single year.
I
So that
don't.
is not uncommon to have those planets
It's
retrograde.
really uncommon if you don't have one, kind of.
That's right. I have seen very few charts that have no retrogrades in all my years. It happens. Like we do have no retrograde time periods. And you can find out about that let me share my screen with you. You
Okay.
could find out about that. Let me see. Let me share the screen. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to share.
So many choices.
There's so many choices. Oh, it won't tell me. I'm just going to do the screen itself. Oh no, that's no. Let me. I want to do my website. It won't let me. Let me see if I can do it one more time. I have a lecture. I have a lecture coming up.
Yes, we want to talk
It's
about this. This is really
yeah.
important, guys. I'm going to take this thing.
Well, I
George,
don't know if how what page I can look. Oh, that's those guys.
here's okay. No, that's the plant. That's the things going across the.
It is.
Yes,
It
it is.
is. I know. I can't figure out how to get. Does this did the page show up then?
The one. This is the one that showed up, and we took looked at. We've looked at that.
Okay. Oh, I can't figure out how to stop the share. I can't figure out how to share
Well,
what
if you
is on
want
my
to know
desktop.
about it, I've got
Hmm.
the banner. Go to her YouTube channel. She's
Yeah.
talking about it there,
Yep.
and it's going to be. And investing in a
Yeah.
fun course like that periodically is really good for stretching your mind.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see if I allow that. Here we go.
Oh,
Did it show
okay.
up?
Here we go.
There we are. Hopefully it showed
Mhm.
up. We
Yeah,
got a little
looks good.
delay, so I can't tell. So this is on my website, DorothyMorganAstrologer.com. I'm recording it soon and it will be delivered. It's not going to be live, but it will be delivered on November 19th. It's an 11-day in numerology, so I figured that would be a good day.
Hmm.
It's going to be about 2 hours long, hour and a half, 2 hours.
Hmm.
Here's just a few of the things that we'll talk about: the eclipses, the Mercury retrogrades. We have Mars retrograde this year coming up at the end of the year, plus a lot of Pluto stuff. Here's the no retrograde time period. That's what I wanted to talk about. So there is an actual period these days. It doesn't happen. Things get out of sync after a while, but kind of like an accordion. And right now, and for the last couple of years, we've had a few weeks every beginning of every year where there is no retrogrades.
Hmm.
And so we have that in the year coming up, 2024, from January 27th to April 1st. And so there's a lot going on there. Election day is going to be absolutely nuts. So we'll talk
Hmm.
about that in that forecast coming ahead. So yeah, so that's what so anyways, that's a nice big overview. It'll be an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and you can just order that anytime you want, and it'll be in your inbox on November 19th. And what led us to that was the retrogrades.
Right.
In that question of the
Right.
retrogrades, yeah. So
And
we do have a time frame when we're not born with retrogrades.
there are. I know.
Hmm.
I was born in one.
Yeah.
Um, I hello to Nuno Fernandez. He's come from your channel. He's in
Oh,
London. And
nice.
welcome to come see us. And if you're new to my channel, it's Nancy Jean's Garden, just like what's under my name. And I talk about all kinds of stuff, and I have all kinds of divination tools that are not typical of all of them, but I'm a very good tarot reader. So if you're interested in that and interested in meeting wonderful, fun people like Dorothy, please come over and join my channel. And if you're from my channel and you really want a good astrologer that's not going to bury you in gloom and doom and doesn't care about the fate of Orange Hitler, um, but it's not her obsession. Uh, Go to Dorothy's channel, and she's lovely, hands-on. How can I use it tarot? Not all of us want to take over the world and terrorize everyone. We just want to know,
That's
how
right.
can I get through to next Thursday? Really.
That's right. That's my main thing. If you ask me what I can do with what I do with my astrology is, I really do give you absolutely logical, practical information that you can use.
Hmm.
We can get overly woo woo if you want, but which is fine. I can do that too. But I want just like when I have a reading, I want to leave a reading knowing what I can do, not some astrological mumbo jumbo or an or a tarot card, which I don't know what it means. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to walk out of there with more question marks over my head than I started with. So that's why when I do sessions, I do my absolute utmost to keep things nice and clear and give you really good ideas and insight into how to use what's happening right now for you yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm going to
important.
tell the story of how Dorothy and I met, and I'm sure
Okay.
half my people are going to leave right now. Um, when I first was working with crystal grids, I built one for myself, and it was to get prosperity and fun things and just stuff that was fun. It wasn't for to get new jobs or anything. And I put a bunch of friends on it that needed some
Mhm.
help and a kick in the butt with their prosperity. And it was in 2018. Yep, it was in 2018,
Yeah.
I think. And so the next day, I open up my emails, and there's an email from Dorothy Morgan, who I had watched
Yeah.
a couple times and had written her. And I said, I really appreciate the way you approach astrology. And she said, she said, uh, well, what you used to do, I don't know if you still do it, but you'd go through and you'd look and you'd find a
Mhm.
new someone that was a new email that had come in that month. She'd
Yep.
pull one out and she'd offered you a free reading.
Mhm.
And so I looked at that and I thought, what fun. Yesterday I lit up my grid, empowered it. And so I knew Dorothy's an astrologer, right? They know what time they do everything. I mean, it's just what they do. That's why I could never be one. I can't be that precise. But
That's
Dorothy,
so much fun. I love it.
so when Dorothy and I made the appointment, this is before Zoom, when you did it on the old way on the phone.
On the phone.
And I was talking to her, and we got to the end of my reading. She did a wonderful progression chart for me because I told her I already had my own birth chart and I'd studied it. And she told me a lot of stuff in my progression chart, which was very interesting. And then I said, what time did you pull the name out of the hat, from your emails? And she pulled my name out about 30 minutes after I'd fired up my grid. So I considered Dorothy. I went, okay, these things work. I can
Yep.
start to really work with grids because they work.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Nice and
so
strong.
anyway,
Yep.
I hope you will go over and visit Dorothy. I hope some of you will take advantage of her class because people always ask me about astrology, and I'm like, don't ask me.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a private mentor. That's a lecture I was just showing you.
mhm,
I do private mentors right now. I don't have any group classes. I'm thinking of trying to do something in January. I'm not sure yet.
yeah,
We'll
and
see. But
um,
I do private stuff if you
but
already have
Dorothy
some
does
knowledge.
brilliant specialized things like
Yeah.
election dates, which is not the date that we elect a president. The election date means you say, I've got a project coming up. What's the best day to start it?
Yeah.
And Dorothy kind of looks at your chart. We look at trust me, she just did this for my tarot class. And trying to find an election date in this
Hmm.
in this fall was like, I mean, those she was putting them up on her screen. I go, well, that looks crazy. Um,
It was not easy, but you
it
have
was
to
not
choose the
easy, but
best.
it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
It worked. My classes worked out perfectly. My people were the right people.
Yeah.
It worked out just perfect. I'm going to have another class in late January, and it'll be also from the stars because Dorothy and I are going to pick election dates again.
We are. We're gonna do that. It's late
So anyway,
January. You got it.
but
I'll
I
probably
like.
start a class then too.
Do you have anything else you want to mention, Dorothy? Or I
No,
like to
I
keep things close to an hour.
no, this is good. Rectification. Mary, just go ahead and email me and we can have a conversation
Hmm.
about that. Yeah, Mary
Yeah.
wanted to know about rectifications and stuff.
Yes, that's a long process, but
Yeah,
and
it is. So no, thank you everybody. This has been beautiful. We had a chance
okay,
to talk about
and
all kinds of things between
and
tarot and
Dorothy
astrology and everything else.
Dorothy will be back,
Mhm.
and maybe I'll be awake. I'll be finished having the eclipse on my butt.
Yeah.
And you all take care. Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Blessings.